the food chain. You see, on top there's Don Lino.
Right.
There's me. And there's regular fish.
Oh, that's me.
No. There's plankton. There's single-cell amoebas.
Oh, then there's me.
I'm getting there. There's coral. There's rocks. There's whale poo. And then there's you.
That's messed up.
Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a point in every zombie YouTuber's career where they need to shit out a quick video, something they can pump out in 5 minutes. We are talking bottom of the barrel content. But this bottom of the barrel content is magical. It's the kind of content that can take a dead channel from no views to 60,000 views overnight. This magical content, you may be asking, John, what is it? Well, let me tell you, it is tier list videos. But the only thing worse than a tier list video is a reaction to a tier list video. But ladies and gentlemen, we found a loophole. We can just make a tier list of tier lists. So here's what we are doing today. We are going to be taking a bunch of zombie YouTuber tier lists, and we are going to be tier listing their tier list. This, ladies and gentlemen, is how we avoid bottom of the barrel content. Before we jump into this shit tier content, what I first want to quickly mention is that we are retiring the remastered Die Rise merch. It's becoming apparent that in spite of how loud our calls are, it's time to change our approach. So I have my remastered Die Rise merch on Teespring. By the end of this weekend, it will be gone forever while we replan our new strategy to get Die Rise remastered. So if you want to give one last push in the cause, may I recommend you check out the remastered Die Rise sweatshirts, t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, and posters, all of that magic. It's going to be gone before the weekend's end, so check it out while it's still available. Without further ado, let's jump into this bottom of the barrel content. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is our tier list. Of course, we have the Die Rise tier. This is for the top tier list, the creme de la creme. The S tier, the A, B, C, D, and so forth. Your standard tier list. Only the best tier lists go into the Die Rise category. Only tier lists made by awful people like Tim Hansen and Crazy Rabbit and The Smith Plays go into the D tier. We're going to kick things off with a tier list from TTS, who is well known in the high round run community. His tier list is interesting. He breaks it into 3 tier lists. So we have a tier list inside of a tier list, which means that when we put this in our tier list, we're going to have a tier list inside a tier list inside a tier list. This is 3 layers of tier lists. This is content that has never been done on YouTube before. It's going to get points 1 for its ingenuity, but I think it also makes some really interesting picks. Let's notice that he puts Die Rise in the God tier camping maps. Incredible decision. TTS, well done. For that choice right there, we are going to slot you into the S tier category. That is what we're working with here. This is a combination of not only having an ingenious tier list, of breaking multiple tier lists into your tier list, but also just wise judgment. Die Rise is a God tier camping map. Next, we're moving on to a tier list from a man who people think I allegedly hate, Tim Hansen. I don't know why people think I hate Tim Hansen, but apparently they do. So here we have Tim Hansen's tier ranking, and it's definitely a controversial one. I mean, he puts Die Rise in the decent category. I'm not sure what kind of nonsense that is right there. The top is relatively standard. Your Mob of the Dead, DE, Origin, Shadows. They're usually in the top of most tier lists. It gets interesting when you look at the bottom. He put Shangri-La in a quality map, which I think is a really poor decision. Shangri-La is at best a perfect map and at worst a good map, but most likely would fall into the great category. So Tim, you're really lacking there. He also puts Blood of the Dead in the bad category, and I just don't see it. I mean, you mean to tell me that Blood of the Dead is worse than Transit? This tier list is full of odd and just bizarre choices. For that reason, we are slotting Tim Hansen's tier list into the C tier of tier lists. Let's now move on to the most famous zombie YouTuber around, Syndicate. When you look at Syndicate's tier list, the first thing that'll jump out to you immediately is that he has Die Rise in the A tier, so well done, Syndicate, good shit there. Most of the tiers are pretty straightforward. Your DEs in the top, Mob of the Dead and Origins are pretty high in the A tier. What I appreciate is that he only puts Die Rise 2 slots below Mob of the Dead. That is what I'm talking about. Overall, I'd say it's a pretty safe tier list. I don't have any major complaints to it. You've got Dead of the Night, Ancient Evil, and Voyage at the bottom, which are maps that I think most people would agree aren't great maps. I don't know what Moon is doing in the D tier, but I'll let it slide for now. We're going to put Syndicate in the S tier for his decision to put Die Rise only 2 slots below Mob of the Dead. The next tier list we're going to be looking at comes from Plush Johnny. So when you look at Johnny's tier list, there's a couple things that strike you as interesting. The first is that he has things broken up into how often he plays the map. So he's got the daily, the weekly, monthly, periodic, and once or every year category. It's a little weird. The first thing you'll notice is that he has Transit in the daily category. So you tell me you're playing Transit on a daily basis? Get the fuck out of here. He's also playing Die Rise either once or maybe once a year. Are you kidding me? Also, no respect for Noctare and Toten. He puts it at the very bottom of the list. I mean, have some respect for your elders, my man. For that reason, we're putting Johnny in the C tier category below Tim Hansen. I mean, just absolutely the blatant disrespect to Noctare and Toten, the original, is uncalled for. And honestly, the fact that you're just gonna bury Noctare and Toten like this at the bottom of your tier list shows just an absolute and blatant disregard for everything this community stands for and is built upon. Go fuck yourself, Johnny. After that disaster of a tier list, we are going to be looking at Codename Pizza's tier list. This one he made in conjunction with Chopper. They did it together in a video, but you'll see in a moment we're also going to be looking at Chopper's tier list. So this one is one that could probably go either way in who we credit it to, but we're just going to credit it to Pizza. If we look at it, one, he gets points for doing all of the maps. He did the IW maps, he did the Exo Zombies maps, and he did the Treyarch maps. He puts Die Rise in the meh category, but at least he didn't bury it at the bottom of the tier list. The top of his tier list is pretty straightforward: DE, Shadows, and Origins. You know, we're not really looking too ambitious in this T tier, but I appreciate the fact that Pizza is brave enough to give Zombies and Spaceland some love and puts it in the excellent category. Zombies and Spaceland, in my opinion, is one of the most fun in terms of style zombie maps that we've ever had, and it doesn't get enough love from this community. I know people don't love IW Zombies, but Zombies and Spaceland is pretty good, and I appreciate that Pizza can appreciate Zombies and Spaceland. For that, we're dropping Pizza in the B tier category. It's a relatively safe pick, but he does put Zombies in Spaceland where it deserves and gives us some love. I just think he could use a higher rating on Die Rise. The next tier list we're looking at comes from none other than Crazy Rabbit, one of the wild cards in the Zombies community. Looking at his tier list, he's got Moon as the best Zombies map of all time, on top with Ascension and Kino. I agree with those picks for the most part. Like, I don't know if I'd put them at the best of all time, but I think they definitely deserve high tier spots. He's got Transit relatively high in the B tier category. I don't know what's going on there. Die Rise is in the F tier category. That's just absolute garbage right there. I don't know what he was thinking there, but he and I know, don't agree on Die Rise, but I digress. He's got Shadows in the D tier category, which is a bold pick right there. I don't know if many people would agree with that. I don't love Voyage in the E tier category. So Voyage, it's my guilty pleasure of Black Ops 4. For some reason, I really like how tight Voyage is, so I don't agree with that pick. Honestly, he even has Origins in the C tier category, which, while I agree with, I think is a bold decision. And Shangri-La in the C tier category, like I've said earlier, that deserves to be in the higher tiers. Honestly, almost every pick on this, DE's not even in the A tier category. Mob of the Dead's not in the A tier. Deriz isn't in the A tier. He's got Revelations in the B tier category, which everybody knows is basically just a clip show, not even a full Zombies map. I think I could make an argument about every placement on this list. For that reason, this will go down as the worst tier list I've ever seen. Crazy Rabbit, you're going straight to the D category for dumbass. Man, you need to learn how to rank Zombies maps. This next tier list is an interesting one. This tier list was made by Crazy Rabbit's chat over the course of a live stream. So I guess he aggregated what he thinks his audience thinks about Zombies maps. Let's see if Crazy Rabbit's chat is any smarter than Crazy Rabbit. When we look at it, the first thing we notice is that none of the maps are labeled, so I have to think a little bit harder when I look at it. You know, you still have Die Rise at the very bottom. It's a little insulting that you would call it ass, but I digress. The S tier category features Ascension, Verrucht, Transit, I think is Deriz, Mob of the Dead, and Moon. All around pretty good maps. It still has DE and Origins in the A tier category. I'm not going to argue with it, but I think it's surprising. I also don't love the fact that Call of the Dead is placed so highly in the A tier. It's not awful, but it's not great. I think it's slightly better than the tier list that Crazy Rabbit made himself. For this reason, we're going to chuck it in the C tier category. Let's now take a look at the tier list from Kingdom Hops, who is a smaller zombies YouTuber. You might have seen him in some Easter egg runs. If we look at he's got Zombies in Spaceland all the way at the top. I think Zombies in Spaceland deserves love, but I don't know if it deserves that much love. It was an interesting choice to put it at the top. He's also got Ancient Evil up there and Blood of the Dead. I don't know if I agree with that one right there. He's got Mob of the Dead in the F tier. Call of the Dead in the E tier. I know I just buried Call of the Dead a little bit in the last tier ranking, but I don't think it deserves the E tier. He's got Moon in the D tier. Don't tell JC, but he's got Garad Crovey in the D tier. This almost feels like a parody. He's got DE and Die Rise in the C tier, along with Origins and Shangri-La. Are you kidding me, Kingdom Hops? I almost don't believe this. This feels like a joke tier list. Regardless, I'm still going to treat it like a normal tier list. We're throwing this all the way in the D tier. This one is hot garbage. The next tier list we're looking at comes from Johnny J25. And when we look at this tier list, it makes sense. You know, Mob of the Dead and DE are at the top. They're generally some of the best zombies maps we've ever seen. Shangri-La, Verrückt, Final Reich, Ascension 9, they deserve to be A-tier maps. I would agree with that. If we look at the bottom, Tortured Path, Shaolin Shuffle, Transit, not great maps. Garad Crovey in the C tier, that makes sense. I mean, nothing really jumps out about Garad Crovey when you think about Garad Crovey. It's just, nothing jumps out about it. So it works in the C tier if you ask me. Where's he putting Die Rise? Johnny J puts Die Rise in the B tier category. Wow. You'd think it'd be higher. Overall, I say most of the picks work. I think I agree with most of them. Maybe bump Die Rise up to the A tier. It's definitely not the best map, but it's a map that, the fact that it hasn't been remastered yet is absolutely fucking atrocious. Treyarch, get on that. By the way, pick up some remastered Die Rise merch if you're interested while it's there. Overall, I'd say 99% of the picks on this tier list. We're going to throw this in the Die Rise tier category. Overall, I'd say solid tier list by Johnny J right there. The next tier list that we're going to be looking at comes from Fat Matt, another smaller zombies YouTuber. This one, I would say, is pretty safe as far as tier lists go. I mean, DE, Deriz, Kino, Mob, Origins, all in the top. Not that ambitious of a tier list right there. Ancient Evil in the Legendary category, pretty interesting pick right there. Die Rise in the Decent. At least he's not burying it by saying he only plays it once or calls it ass. So, it's not that high, but at least he's not burying one of the best maps of all time. Dead of the Night and Transit at the bottom. That's fair, I think. Shangri-La could be a little bit higher. Overall, I'd say it's not the worst one. It's not the best. Let's just slot it into the A tier category as far as tier lists go. The last tier list we're going to be looking at comes from Chopper, and as we evaluate this tier list, again, it's a safe top. Shadows, DE, Mob, and Origins are there at the top. You're starting to see a pattern at the bottom. He's got Transit, Blood of the Dead, Die Rise, and Dead of the Night. You mean to tell me that Die Rise is worse than Blood of the Dead and Transit, Chopper? That's just disgusting right there. Awful choice. He's bumping Garad Crovey all the way to the A tier. Again, nothing jumps out at me about Garad Crovey. I just don't see why it's an A tier map. He's putting Revelations under Shangri-La. I mean, you mean to tell me that a map in a beautiful, luscious jungle is worse than a literal clip show? Again, no. There's a number of issues with this tier list. I'm going to slot this one into the C tier. This, ladies and gentlemen, is your final tier list of Zombies Maps tier lists. We've got Johnny J in the Die Rise category. Overall, good selections. TTS's Syndicate in the S tier. A tier, we'll go Fat Nat. B, we got Codename Pizza's tier list. The C tier is where we see a lot of garbage. Typically, Tim Hansen, Johnny, Crazy Rabbits Chat and Chopper will occupy that slot with their tier lists. When it comes to Crazy Rabbits tier list and Kingdom Hops, they're just bad. That's going in the D tier category right there. This is how I would break down zombie YouTubers tier list. Let me know down in the comments below, how would you rate other zombie YouTubers tier lists? I hope you enjoyed this bottom of the barrel content. In addition to that, you can also check out my Remastered Die Rise merch. It's going to be going away in a couple of days. This is the last weekend to get it, and then we're retiring it forever. Have a wonderful day, and bye.
This motherfucker don't miss.
No, he's fucking good.
That motherfucker don't miss, man.
He's good.
In the heat of battle, he don't miss.
No.
In the heat of controversy, he don't miss.
No.